I came all the way from New York City to see the Battlestar Galactica reunion.
Battlestar Galactica really was given a platform to talk about things that were current and that mattered.
And I think the relevance, it's still so relevant today.
Together with the old gang again and, be in front of a crowd and talk about the show. So we're really, really happy to be here.
We just really enjoyed meeting all the people who love television.
This is Caitlin McFarlane. We are the co-founders, co-executive directors of the ATX Television Festival. We are so excited to have each one of you here for season 6 closing night. Guys, how many of you are here season 1? Whoa! That was all that was here season 1. So thank you guys for coming all of these years. For those of you that are here for the first time, thank you so much for joining our ATX family. As you can tell, we have been deemed TV camp for grown-ups. We leaned in. This is all about bringing the television community together as one to watch and celebrate and talk about TV. We are so excited to have Battlestar Galactica here. This is a reunion we wanted for a while. They're amazing. You can always, reuniting a cast that loves each other, there's nothing like it. You can tell that they are a true family. We're excited to bring them out. We're going to thank a few of our partners. And
first, I'd like to thank our volunteers. As you saw, this thing does not happen without them. I'd also like to thank our staff. Believe it or not, there's 5 of us that work year-round, and they blood, sweat, and tears this thing. And then our partners. I mean, we cannot do this without them. We are a small community, and without them, we don't get this many people here. So we want to thank Syfy for coming on. Battlestar does not exist without Syfy. So thanks, Syfy. We'd also like to thank EW. They came in a couple of years ago. They were a dream partner of ours. They are industry and fan. ATX is industry and fan. We meet together, and Entertainment Weekly completely embodies that for us. They help us do photo suites. They help us do panels, they help us do reunions. So please thank Entertainment Weekly for us. And to continue that, I would like to bring out the editor-in-chief, Henry Goldblatt.
Hello. The only thing I love more than chips and queso in Austin is this festival. And it really, really, it's a real testament to Emily and Kate. Let's have a round of applause for them. As Kate said, they are absolute dream partners, and they put everything they have into this festival, and I know it means the world that you all are here to them, and so thank you so much for coming. A couple quick thank yous from me. I want to thank Syfy again for sponsoring tonight. I also want to give a shout out to Entertainment Weekly staffer Brittany Kaplan, who's our talent and events editor. She is the one, if you like what you see tonight, she is the one who put this all together and got all the talent together and at the same time and on the same stage. And so, Brittany, wherever you are in the audience, thank you so much. You're in for a huge, huge treat tonight. Entertainment Weekly editor-at-large James Hibberd is the moderator. He is fantastic. He's super smart and passionate about the show. I think you're really going to enjoy it. Have a great time. James.
Thank you, Henry. Who is excited for the reunion of Battlestar Galactica? You know, in 2003, this great TV writer by the name of Ron Moore, he sent a mission statement to the Sci-Fi Channel, and it opened with this sentence, quote, "Our goal is nothing less than the reinvention of the science fiction television series." It was a bold, audacious statement, and the amazing thing is, he did it. They all did. They reinvented science fiction television, and now they are here tonight, reunited. So let's give a warm Austin, Texas welcome to the stage. Writer, creator, director, executive producer, he does it all, Ron Moore. The man will follow anywhere, so say we all. As William Adama, Edward James Olmos. She's the president we wish we had. The definitive Starbuck, Katee Sackhoff. Sure, he helped kill off most of the human race, but we love him anyway, as Gaius Baltar, James Callis. She's number 6 in the show, but number 1 in our hearts, Tricia Helfer. She answers to Sharon, Boomer, Athena, or number 8. It's Grace Park. And finally, the man who's always up for a game of pyramid, as Anders, Michael Trucco. Well, so this is a big occasion because it's the first, big public Battlestar Galactica reunion. But as I sort of learned today, you guys actually hang out quite a bit. You guys aren't all apart. You guys spend time with each other. What's that like? Do you talk about the show? Who hangs out with who?
They do. I'm not usually invited. You're invited to everything except you don't work too hard.
Scotland, yeah, you're in South Africa, Scotland.
Scotland for a few years.
It's really interesting because it's true. I mean, these people hang out together a lot. They all live on the other side of the mountain. And Eddie lived very close to both James Callis' beautiful wife, his beautiful children, and the Bambers, when they were here, they were all like, this is Grandpa Eddie. It really is kind of profoundly different than I think what happens to a lot of casts when it's time to run away from each other. We just simply did not do that.
Yeah, and when the guys visit from Vancouver, like the people who are from Vancouver, they all stay with us or see us. So Tamo, Michael Hogan, Candice, etc. You know that phrase, "Mikaze Sukaza"? That's kind of how it is.
So then I can stay with you guys too?
I've been asking
Yes.
so
No,
long.
you're staying on our side of the hill. You have to
You're
stay
staying
on our side of the hill.
I live by the airport, so I get the stop-bys.
So going back to the introduction, Ron, I know one question that you've been asked many times, but it's something everybody always wants to know, and that's, were you a fan of the original series? How did this show first get started?
I saw the original series in its original run as a kid. I was a Star Trek fan growing up, and then Star Wars, yes. And so when suddenly there was going to be this big splashy sci-fi show on ABC in 1978, of course I was there from episode 1 and watched it and enjoyed it. I thought it didn't light the fire in me the way Trek and Star Wars did. It had certain flaws, but it was what it was, and it was a big splashy show, and the visual effects were amazing, and I watched every episode of the original series. I came to the new Galactica in about, I think, February 2002. I got a call from David Icke, who was also an executive producer on the show. He had got a production deal at Universal and called me up and said, Universal is looking for somebody to come in and do a reboot of Battlestar Galactica. There have been a couple of attempts to do it down through the years, all of which have failed for various reasons. Would you be interested? And I wasn't sure. I said, I'd done 10 years at Trek, and I wasn't sure I wanted to go back into space again. So I said, give me the weekend, let me watch the original pilot, because I hadn't seen it in like 20-some years. Went to Blockbuster, got a VHS tape. Ask your parents, some of you that don't. Watched it over the weekend, and I was very struck by the idea of doing that show at that moment in time. Because when I watched that pilot, 3 months after 9/11, it had a completely different resonance, where suddenly it was about an apocalyptic attack out of the blue that devastated these worlds, and the story was about the survivors who ran away and were being pursued by their enemies into the night. And I just sort of immediately thought, if you did that show now, it was an opportunity to talk about the things that were happening in the world. It was an opportunity to talk about society. It was the role of the military and the civilian government in a time of war, about terrorism and fundamentalism and all kinds of things. And I just sort of thought, this is an amazing thing, I should grab at this. So I called David back on Monday and said, I'm in, let's do it.
Now, you've said before that the Syfy channel was very on board with doing something different, but was there anything that they initially resisted? I mean, you had spaceships that didn't make sound, you had number 6 killing a baby in the first act. Was there anything that they pushed back on even a little?
Well, I mean, when I pitched it, I could have done anything. They really didn't care. It's like, you can do whatever you want with this, was kind of the attitude. And once we started doing the show, yeah, there were points we had arguments about, but I don't think I never really had serious arguments with the network about any of the fundamentals of the show. The politics, the religious aspect, the social commentary, suicide bombings, I mean, on and on and on. All the big ticket items we never fought about. We fought about stupid things. We thought about, how much blood you're going to show, how many pilots actually have to die in this scene, is the show too dark? Is it too depressing? I heard over and over again. The show's so depressing. It's the tonnage. It's the tonnage of the depression. Everyone's gonna be bummed out. No one's gonna watch the show. We had that argument a lot. But by and large, they really, on the things that really matter, that signify the show and that is remembered, they left us alone on all those fronts.
So a lot of people don't realize that the word frack was actually in the original series, but not to the degree that you used it, or the way that you used it. Can you talk about the way you sort of ramped that up?
Oh, I just said, this is a brilliant opportunity to say fuck over and over again. Every week, I'm gonna just say it. It's gonna be frack me, frack you, mother fracker, frack this, frack off. It's like every part.
We were fracking.
All the way. It's just like, this is just a license to kill, so I'm just gonna do it over and over again.
So let's go down the line with the cast and talk about, what are some of your memorable moments from when you first joined the show? Eddie, I know you were pretty reluctant at first to sign on to this.
Yeah, I was. I basically had a strong understanding of the world, but I had gotten it through Blade Runner. So I went in and when I talked to him, I said, listen guys, if we're gonna really have an aesthetic, let's go after the aesthetic that was brought forth by Blade Runner. Let's, at least if nothing else, hit that understanding and not try to do something that's, so outlandish that, we'll be fighting creatures from the Black Lagoon, 2-lipped, 4-eyed, 3 ears people, and they said, no, we're not gonna do any of that. I go, great, because if I see one creature like that, I'm gonna faint on camera, and you're gonna have to write that he died of a heart attack. Thank you. And so they were really into it. They knew that they had to really, all of them, I mean, Reimer, Ike's, of course, Ron, that you could tell by the writing. I mean, what got me in it was the writing. I think what got us all was the writing. It was brilliant from the first page. And you open it up in the manifesto that he wrote, the 3-page manifesto, to how you're supposed to look at the script and what would be happening and the way to read the script. He had 3 pages before you actually opened the script to get into the script. And it was just beautifully written. And I just said, well, this is really beyond. I mean, I hadn't seen anything like this since, not even Blade Runner was this well crafted. And because the story was very deep, very quick, and it was so long. I mean, it was 4 hours. I mean, it's a lot of writing and a lot of story, and it just held true from the beginning to the end. I said, and that's when I told, because I said no at the beginning. I said, thank you very much, but I'm working. I have things I have to do rather than do Battlestar Galactica remake. It's not for me. Thank you very much. And thinking, Jesus. So I did it. I mean, I went over, I read it. My agent said, please read it. And I said, okay, I'll do that. I'll read that. And then I read it, and I immediately said, yeah, I want to meet with him. Let me do this. And when we met, we got into it right from the very beginning. There was no two ways around it. It was right just into the aesthetic, into the understanding of what the power was, and he had it. He really meant what he said there. He was going to reinvent the journey, and I believed him. I said, okay, I'm on. And that was it.
And Mary, you were a little reluctant as well, to put off by the title a bit originally.
Well, I never saw the original because at the time I was a stage actress in New York, and that was a very long time ago, and I didn't have a television. And I can't believe you laugh at Blockbuster. I mean, oh my God, we thought Blockbuster was just the most revolutionary thing ever on the planet. So I didn't know anything about it. I didn't understand. It was presented to me, you have an offer to do the remake or reinvention of Battlestar Galactica, and I just giggled. But then at the same thing, I read the script. I fell in love with all of the characters. I mean, that was really important to me. I attached to these people in the first read-through. And I thought, well, what would the experience of having to try and be the president to these beloved characters? You just fall in love with them instantly. And I also, as many of you know, because I talk about it probably ad nauseum, but it was very important to me to kind of explore a woman coming into power without a cultural training or support behind her, as many women my age have experienced. And then it went from there in terms of Hillary, and we were shooting this when Hillary was running, and it became a very timely event for me. We started it not too long after September 11th, so there was a deep emotional connection as well.
And Katee, the part you went out for was originally written for a woman in her mid-30s, right? And you were like 21, 22 at the time?
Yeah, no, I was a lot younger, I think, than they had anticipated or had been thinking about casting, or at least that's what I was told. But I read the script, and it was like this big, thick thing. And I was on a plane heading home for Christmas in 2001, and I read this thing, and I thought to myself, oh my God, I've been searching for this for like 5 years. I get to shoot a gun. This is amazing. My dad would be so proud. And I was like, I have to do this. And I called my people as soon as I got off the phone, because I had people. And I thought to myself, and I was like, I have to do this. And they were like, no, they said you're too girly. You know, whatever. And it took me quite a while. I mean, I think I auditioned like 6 or 7 times. I cut my hair in the process. I took off my stilettos, because I guess Starbucks doesn't wear those. And eventually, you know, I got the part, and I had no idea that it was ever going to be this, you know, and I had never seen the original. So one of my best girlfriends and I decided to watch it, because I called my dad and I said, I got a role, you'd be so happy, it's Battlestar Galactica. And he was like, that's great, who are you playing? And I was like, Starbuck. And he went, what? And he's like, do me a favor, go to Blockbuster. Rent it and watch it and call me back. And I was like, okay, cool. And so my girlfriend and I were drinking wine, as you do. And we get like 10 minutes into it, and they're talking about Starbuck, and Starbuck's obviously been in the room, and she looks at me and goes, did we miss it? Where is she? Katee, rewind it. So we rewound it, push play. And I went, oh shit. And I called my dad back, and I was like, okay, I get that. And so I marched down to the internet cafe. It was 4 blocks away. And I marched on down. I paid my $11.99 for 1 hour. And I logged on to a chat group just to see what they thought. And I learned in that moment, fuck 'em. So there you go.
Yeah, Ron, I wanted to circle back on that for a minute because nowadays it's not uncommon for producers rebooting a title to consider changing the gender of a character and put a new spin on things. But when you did it for Starbuck, it was really considered a huge original move. You know, what was the inspiration for that, and did you expect it to get as big of a reaction as it did?
It was literally one of the first things I thought of, honestly. That first weekend when I had my Blockbuster tape, and I was watching the show, you know, sometimes we forget that the original series, the leads were actually Starbuck and Apollo. Like, they were the leads. It wasn't Adama, you know, and there was no Laura. The leads were these 2 fighter pilots. So when I was looking at the old show and trying to figure out how I would adapt this, the first question was, what do you do with Starbuck and Apollo? And the characters as such were, you know, it's the good guy, good son, and his roguish friend who smokes cigars and gambles and chases women. And I was sort of stumped, like, what would I do with, what's the new spin on that? What could I do with that? It feels like an old trope at this point. And I just had this moment of, well, what if I made Starbuck a woman? And this was at a moment in time when we were just starting to see women in combat, you were just starting to see female fighter pilots for the first time, so it was kind of new. And I thought, oh, well, how would that play out? Wait a minute, and she has all the same characteristics. She smokes cigars, and she gambles, and she's the first one to throw a punch, and she's a little unstable, and, you know. And I thought, I haven't seen that character before as a female fighter pilot. That's kind of cool. So when I called David back, it was one of the first things I pitched him. I just thought, this is kind of an interesting twist. And yeah, I thought it'd be sort of a minor controversy, but I didn't really think it'd be a thing. And then once it became a thing, then I was like, yeah, just stoke those flames, man. We need all the time. Yeah. Yell about it. Get angry. I need the publicity, please. More chat rooms. More mail demanding Ron Moore's head, please. No, give it to me. Give it to me.
Were you surprised at all when the big controversy came out about Ghostbusters that all these years later, you know, doing that in sci-fi still, for some reason, you know, draws a bunch of outrage?
I was surprised and sort of like, really? Really? People are getting upset about this? It seemed like the dumbest thing in the world. I couldn't quite fathom why anybody was upset about doing that. It was just kind of baffling more than anything else.
And let's see, back to James. One thing I find interesting about your character is, you know, he's so associated with bringing this humorous level to the show, but it wasn't originally written as a humorous character. You brought that to it in the audition.
Yeah, I didn't mean to. It's one of those things. It just kind of happened along the way. No, I kept. We all auditioned. I'm just finding out now. I didn't realize that you, Katie, you also auditioned like a lot. I auditioned so many times for this show. I was like, why don't they make it like as difficult like to become the president? To get on the Syfy network. I mean, by the 5th audition, you're like, what have I done? Why am I still here? What have we not decided at this point? What are we still? So essentially, I kept on auditioning the same scene with Tricia over and over again, like, and it was the scene where I was found in bed with another woman, and I just happened to think that was funny. I just thought it was funny. And also the whole idea of like trying to like lie your way up. Oh, I'm so sorry. It's not what you think. It's not what I'm not even in love with. I just, you know, I mean, it's ridiculous. And I auditioned for that a lot. I did that a lot. And I kept on saying to the people, as it were, the powers that be, this is not really the right scene that you should be watching. to audition the character, because the character is going to change very, very much when he finds out actually what he's been involved with. He's going to be... Hello? Is that... Sorry. And yeah, I essentially, I wanted to bring somebody to the party who was not heroic, who didn't know if they were going to move left or right. I was speaking to somebody today, it's like walking down the corridor, and everybody else walks with such purpose. They're on a way to do something, to go to, you know, the pilot's room, to have a recce. It's military. So what if there's somebody walking down the corridor who's like, did I have breakfast this morning? Is that important? And it was just a different energy, you know, and essentially as well, like that, the writing was incredible. You started to fall in love with these people, but unless there was an element of humor or something, then I'd have just been the person that you just hate him totally. And what he was only involved in was monstrous, totally monstrous. So if you knew what you were doing at the time, then that makes you a monster, and that wasn't what I wanted to be.
Yeah, you once said that they made you and Tricia kiss on the first day on set to break the ice. Is that possibly true?
Broke a lot of ice. I mean, I said we broke a lot of ice. But yeah, that's not quite true.
No, that's not quite true.
That's not quite true.
I made us
I'm
kiss.
gonna let Tricia tell that story.
I did. Okay, so it was my first, I've been acting for about a year, maybe a little under, and it was a script that I got right before Christmas of 2002, end of 2002. Yeah, you were a year early, dude. And I took it home with me, and because I grew up without a television, but I remember, like, my dad liked Star Trek and Star Trek movies, so those are the only ones I saw growing up, and I never saw television. But so I was like, oh, my dad's gonna like to read this, maybe. He didn't read it, but I read it and I loved it. And going back to what Eddie and Mary said, I just was drawn to this. I know I'm going from the kissing story. I'll get back to that.
Please do.
But you know, I read it and that was my first audition back. It was January 6th, I think, of 2003. And anyway, I didn't get the job till like April. But so yes, many auditions. But the kissing scene, okay, I'll just fast forward to the kissing scene. So we got cast last.
Did we?
Yes.
News to me.
I think we got cast last. And I remember after the test, because the test took half a day or something, it was like going in, and we were the last to go in. And at this point, I had no idea which way was up, sideways, whatever. And I remember I left to Bristol Farms, and I went in and I bought old-fashioned donuts and mashed potatoes. And I sat in my car and ate old-fashioned donuts and mashed potatoes after the test. And I sat in my car and ate them, and I got the call that they liked what I did in the test. So anyway, and then I got a call later in the day that we were heading to LA, to Vancouver the next day to film. So, so in like 2 days we were filming in Vancouver, and so we're the first day of filming. We're doing in Baltar's house when he hears the news, and the spine glowing scene, and
a lot of intimacy.
A lot of intimacy. And I had a particular outfit that had a lot of really fine snaps and patent leather bra and panties. And I don't know if you know, but patent leather kind of sticks and doesn't really do what you want it to do. And Ron Moore, I think I was pretty shy, very shy. And I think, not Ron Moore, sorry, Michael Reimer, wanted to, but you were there too, Ron. You're probably all worried that I wasn't gonna have this commanding quality, because I was sitting there like, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm gonna get fired, everybody's looking at, you know. And Michael Reimer goes, okay, she has to be a little bit animalistic. I'm like, okay, I can do that, that's fine, in my own life. And so we had to practice. Like, James had to practice disrobing me.
I've got to say, black plastic underwear.
It's not easy.
It's a bit of a handful.
but you know, he was getting nervous, I was getting nervous, we were both sweating, and everybody's like, you know, the execs, everybody around Video Village, and this is the first day of filming. I've barely ever been on a set before in my life, and so I finally just said, James, there's a basement, let's go downstairs. And I said, okay, let's practice this, let's practice the snaps, let's practice the clasps, let's practice this. And then I just went, let's kiss. So we were downstairs in the basement, and I just planted a kiss on him.
It sounds really crazy, but actually it was a really good move, because we were both really self-conscious. And there's a thing about, like, as it were, going for each other in an animalistic way and actually feeling slightly self-conscious, or more than slightly, because you're not in a room by yourself. You're being filmed. There's loads of people around. I suppose that's part of the trick of acting. I'll get it on. Essentially, it was like a rehearsal, and then I think as well there was the realization that we really trusted each other. That you know, it's a thing about trust, and that's what I think helped us establish the relationship, because some of that stuff and being so close to somebody who you don't know, in some way, you know, I'm sure watching it and hearing about it, it's obviously a lot of fun and very exciting, but it is intimidating, and the very last thing that you want to feel on camera when you're trying to be real is to feel self-conscious. So it was a good move, can I say?
And Grace, you didn't actually know your character was a Cylon when you first got hired, right?
No, I didn't, because after auditioning for Duala, then asking to come back for Starbuck, and I tested with Katie. I didn't do the 6, I didn't have that. I just did 1 and then went to LA. It was down to Katie and I, and then I can't remember if I just felt like I wasn't gonna get it, but when I was told I got Boomer, I was pissed. I did not like that. I was like, who the F is Boomer? And so I didn't read the pilot for Boomer. And then so we were shooting the miniseries, and then I realized, and then also you do a little bit of research and realize, like, oh, like, Frack, I guess, she's a Cylon. And then I think I asked you, I'm like, when did you change this? It's like, was there something about me that made you change it? No, I think she was always that, and I just hadn't realized because I wasn't reading for that, and I probably wasn't picking up on the cues.
And Michael, what was it like coming in season 2 after having presumably watched the show?
Well, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but I had early in the process initially auditioned for the role of Apollo. And rumor has it that I got very, very not close at all past the pre-read, I'm pretty sure. No, and I thought, like, at the time, I remember, because I read your mission statement, Ron, I read that first script, and I was like, oh, Jesus, this is the most incredible. I even wrote in a journal, this is the greatest television script I have ever read. And I had done this show years ago called Pensacola Wings of Gold, where I played a fighter pilot. And I was like, I was on a syndicated television show with James Brolin, God damn it, I should be on this show. I wore a flight suit, I know this, Ron. I was so, like, Apollo was, I just wanted that so desperately, and I didn't even get close to it. But coming up a year later, you know, I still remember this audition in Eric Dawson's office, and I was just in for a role that was meant to be, what, 2 episodes? So, you know, as you do as an actor, you go in for, you know, a guest star, a recurring, and I was just lucky to be there. So I said, yeah, this is great, and went in for this character called Anders that was meant to meet the girl, sleep with the girl, fall in love with the girl, and then get kicked in the ass out the door by the girl. And that was the arc of the character, was just sort of a deflection from the Starbuck and Apollo love story. I was going to be the third leg in that triangle for just a couple of episodes. And something incredible happened. The majority of the people fucking hated my character. They hated me, and I think that fueled Ron more than anything. He's like, oh, you don't like Anders?
Well, he's coming back now.
I I mean, talk about the chat rooms in the early days of the internet. People are mean, man. Really mean.
They're still mean.
Yeah, and they said some horrible things, and that just kind of fueled the storyline. And then it became, well, you're gonna come back for another episode. I said, oh, cool, I'm doing 3. And they go, it might be 2, could be 4, but 5 at the most, not more than 6, 7, could be 8 episodes, and then just the first 4 episodes of the next season, but that's it. And then it just kept growing and growing and growing, and suddenly I found myself in this club, in their sandbox, and getting to play with this family, who my first contact was Gracie and Tomo and Katie, and they treated me like one of their own from day one, and that has resonated with me to this day, the fact that we're sitting on this couch 10 years later, and I get to be a part of something that I was a Johnny-come-lately. So I always feel a bit like an imposter sitting with this group, but only in my own, you know, deep recesses of my insecurities I feel that way, because they never made me feel like that. They welcomed me from the first day, so I'm truly grateful to get to sit here among these people and call myself part of this family.
James, you told me an interesting story earlier today about how Eddie gathered the cast in his trailer and sort of read you guys the riot act during the production of the miniseries about taking the show seriously. Could you?
Sure. We're all gifted to be here. Just to say that anyway, it's like such a privilege. It's really awesome, and doing something totally. When I first met Eddie, I was pretty scared, to be honest, because the conviction and the way that Eddie knew exactly what he was doing and where he was going, which I must say was like totally opposite to me, because I didn't know what I was doing, or you know, whatever. So we were all called into the trailer. I'm not sure exactly when it was. It wasn't the first day, but it was like in the first week or something. And everything that Eddie said turned out to be true. Maybe you've heard all of this before, that Eddie sat us all down as the cast. He went, the show's going to go for 5 years. 5 years. Every episode is going to be like a movie. Keep your powder dry. We're in here for the long haul. Nobody is to make fun of this. There'll be enough people anyway who want to cut a swathe in us some way, or rubbish the idea, or you know, that they're not going to be fully on board, and because we've got this title, Battlestar Galactica, that's a blessing as well as perhaps a bit of a poison chalice, nobody needs to take this as seriously as we do. And at the time when Eddie said that, I remember, like, it was a bit like the So Say We All speech on a thing, except it was in the trailer. I thought Eddie was raving mad. So Eddie was like, I was like, 5 years? I may not be here 5 minutes. What's this guy talking about? But the thing that I really did get was the passion and the commitment. And I think that, I mean, for all of us, we were really led through example by Eddie and Mary. These two incredible professionals who gave us everything. And actually that speech at the beginning from Eddie, who is Admiral Adama, was so galvanizing. It's like, at the time you didn't realize how important something like that is. But, you know, very, very lucky. And it was awesome.
Now let's go back to Eddie and sort of go down the road in a different way here with talking about what was your favorite moment for your character throughout the entire show. There's so many twists and turns, so many great scenes, so many great episodes. I know for you it's hard for you to pick, but if you had to pick.
Jesus. It's like asking me which one of my 6 children do I love the most. You've got 6. You love them all, but which one do you love the most? It's really difficult because this is a process and a journey that was let loose by Ron and David and Reimer, and they created an arena and a space in a world where we were allowed to just explode, and everybody rose to the level of expectation from the very first day. I mean, they were doing their love scene the very first day, and I guess you did your scene you told me today that you were in the very first day.
I was in the hospital being told I was dying. I thought it would be a short job.
Then we broke for lunch. Okay? So they just finished trying to get the latex underwear off. Her back was glowing, and this one was told she had cancer. Then we broke for lunch, really. And then we came back, the whole group came back. And the very first thing that we did was the So Say We All scene. And it was, you know, for me, it galvanized me, as it would. Hello. It would, because basically I went into it and got inside of it, but if you were to pick one scene, it was the So Say We All scene, because when we did it, we did it without a rehearsal. And I told Reimer, I said, Reimer, I'm not gonna stand where you want me to stand. I'm gonna go be with all of our crew. I'll be back there with the crew. And we're all standing there. And then when we started into it, I started to move. And I told him, I said, how many cameras do you have? And he said, I got 3. I go, great, and I can move, right? He goes, yeah, okay, great. That's all I needed to know. I just started walking around the space, and as we all saw on that scene, now you gotta remember, that was the very first time we all were together. We were all there, every single one. And it was frightening. It was really like, it was very intense. And what ended up happening was that everybody went with it. And the speech that Ron had wrote, it was just right there. And it worked. And when we said So Say We All, it caught everybody by surprise, because no one knew that I was gonna repeat it. And I said it once and nobody did anything except they kind of like, So Say We All. and we're on camera. And then I said, So Say We All. And then they, So Say We All. And then I just wailed on it, and then they all said, okay, So Say We All. Okay, thank you. And I walked around and I stood right there and I looked back at our spiritual leader and I said, So Say We All. And that did it. It was over. From that, when we broke off of that scene, I remember David Icke calling you up on the telephone. He called, do you remember this phone call? He says, man, we just went through the So Say We All scene. And I saw him shaking. He goes, it was so incredible. And we all felt it. We all felt it. We all went there. And that was, to me, probably the most penetrating moment, because it really set the whole tone for the rest of 5 years.
And Mary, what about you? Do you have a
Well, I'd like to comment on that moment, because first I found out I was dying, and then we did So Say We All, and I was, as Laura Rosalind, going, this is the man that I have to try and save the rest of the human race with. Oh my God, it's such an interesting revelation as to what that was going to be about. Learning his power, learning his rage, and Ron even said today that he saw in the dailies, when it first came out of Eddie, we all kind of looked at each other and So Say We All. And then he said it again, we're kind of going, Laura Roslind's going, where have I landed? This paramilitary nightmare. And yes, it was just extraordinary. It just said, okay, that's where we are. One of my favorite moments that I have lately been thinking a lot about was, I'm coming for all of you, right? And the reason I loved it was because we finally got to touch on Laura Roslind's rage. And that was liberating. But one of my favorite moments on the set had nothing to do with the characters. It's Katie and I were shooting one of our first scenes together and we almost got fired. And we really almost got fired because we literally could not stop laughing.
4 hours.
4 hours. Honestly. because it
guys,
was
real fun.
horrifying. I mean, and we were really upset. We were like backstage crying because we couldn't stop laughing. And then we would promise each other that we wouldn't laugh. And we would laugh and laugh. And David Icke
And it
was
wasn't a funny scene.
And it wasn't funny at all. I was supposed to be ejecting Leoben, and we couldn't stop laughing. And poor Callum is trying to figure out how to act the scene, and these two women are just losing it.
My hands on the wall and I'm doing this.
Oh my God. Anyway, we almost got fired, but it was a good memory. But you notice we didn't have too many scenes after that.
And Katee, what about you? Do you have a favorite?
No. No. I mean, the whole thing for me was so magical in so many ways because I didn't anticipate nor expect it nor realize it in the moment. I just thought I was having fun. And so I don't really have favorite scenes. There's so many favorite moments, but since we're on the topic of getting fired, it was in the pilot. And I remember, because I was told so many times I was not right for this part, by the way, so many times, that there's a piece of you that goes, oh my God, I'm not right for this part. And we're doing a scene in the Viper. And it's the first time I've been in the Viper, so part of me is going like, oh my God, that's so cool. Part of me is going, oh my God, it's like 800 degrees. And then the other part of me is like, what the fuck is my dialogue? I don't know what any of this shit means. I don't know how I'm gonna say it, because I don't know anything. And I couldn't say the dialogue. I literally couldn't say it. We must have done it so many times. And I remember thinking to myself, you stupid little girl, you're gonna get fired. And so I wrote it on the screen. I just put my dialogue right up on the screen because I was like, I'm just gonna read it. And I did it for the rest of the series. All of my dialogue in the cockpit was on the screen. All of it. Or in an earwig. Because I couldn't remember the science stuff. But the one line that I couldn't say, and I think we did so many takes, and I could not get it right, was, till this day, we've got violent decompressions irradiating from the port flight pod. I can't forget it. It's in my goddamn head. It won't go away.
You can say it now.
Forever. I can say it with conviction. I know what it means. I can draw you a diagram. Everything. Terrified. Like within the first week of filming. It was just absolutely terrifying.
What was your reaction to learning that your character was going to be killed off and then come back as something else?
So they didn't send the script out first, and I got this like cryptic phone call from Ron and David in my trailer. And they were like, so we want to talk to you about something. You've done nothing wrong. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I've totally done something wrong. We're gonna kill you. But we're gonna bring you back, so don't worry. You're not gonna be you, but don't worry about it. Everyone's gonna think you're dead. We're gonna take your name out of the credits. You're gonna go home. The whole thing, we're not telling anyone. And I'm like, okay. So I went to Mexico for a couple episodes. But the problem was that I was lying to everyone.
This was one of the stupidest things that David and I did in
Ever.
the entire run of the show.
I mean, I'm like this child. I tell my mom, because I had to tell someone, my mom's on set. The crew were like, so sorry about Katee. My mom's like, I know. She'll be okay. She'll land on her feet. And so finally I was like, call him. I'm like, you guys, I can't do this anymore. Like, I can't. We got to. I'm telling Eddie. Because if I tell Eddie, he's telling everyone. And so I told him, and then he told everyone. We were doing the not Vanity Fair. We were doing the Maxim photo shoot, and he stood up on something, and he told the entire cast that I wasn't really dead, and I felt like such an asshole. But I was like, I promise it wasn't my fault.
Meanwhile, David and I, while this is happening in Vancouver, we're getting calls in Los Angeles from the set saying they're really upset. Like, people, no, you don't understand. People are freaking out that you're killing Starbuck. And we kind of are going, hey, it's working. Nobody's gonna know. This is gonna be the greatest secret of all time. A little time goes by, another phone call. Eddie is pissed. Eddie is walking around saying, this is the death of the show. We're like, what? Steve McNutt is in tears. We're like, what? And it just spiraled completely out of control. And we were like, oh, we're just trying to keep a secret on a TV show. We didn't want to upset anybody.
I think we only made it a week.
Oh, you didn't even make it a week. It was just like a matter of days. And it was like, okay, call it off, tell everybody. It's okay, we're sorry.
I love it for my mind. It's 5 years. 2 days.
So we need to pause for a moment because we normally don't allow networked computers at the Paramount Theater, but this would be a celebration of Battlestar without a bit of a surprise twist, and apparently we have an incoming video transmission. Or maybe not. Fracking Silo.
There's no videos up here. Hold on, man. Where are you?
An icon of Jamie Vammer, everybody.
Jamie, can you hear us?
Should have used
We're in
FaceTime.
Austin, right?
Keep trying, Jamie. Come on. You can do it, Johnny. Jamie.
Should have used FaceTime.
I knew this was.
We're gonna hang up and try again.
Don't hang up. Oh my God, what do we know? We're from Blockbuster. Hang up, don't hang up. I don't know. What do you do?
I think Jamie just flipped us all off.
He looks so handsome.
He really does, right? Just the cutest thing.
Should we continue until? Yeah, I think we're going to go ahead and
We'll keep talking.
continue on, and then
The show must go
if
on.
somebody appears,
Do you
they
want me to try
appear.
calling him?
We have no idea why you're laughing or clapping. What happened? Oh, he's calling. Okay, cool. Sorry, just call me Mrs. Blockbuster.
Let's see. James, why don't?
So his number is 4. Everyone can try to call. Let's see who gets through first.
Okay.
All right, I think he's texting him. He's
James,
like,
why don't we
are you
get
there?
into your moment,
Yes, I am.
if you will? Oh, your favorite moment for your character.
Oh, yeah.
We've been asked about our favorite moments lots and lots over so many years. I actually just realized today that I really don't have one. Everything that I wanted to do or could do, things I never thought I would do, I did. And actually to like draw one out, it was like, then I realized actually just in an interview, wasn't me. Definitely wasn't me. If I could actually find one memory that was more special than the rest, then the show itself wouldn't be as special in my mind.
Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Can you see us?
Yeah, I'm in fucking France.
What do we do now? Okay, we're gonna sit down and let you talk.
Ask him a few questions, come on.
Go ahead.
So Jamie, everyone was telling their favorite stories from when they were cast. Do you have a particular memory from that you'd like to share?
No, that was a long time ago. I can't remember.
Turn the sound up.
I'll tell you a memory from now. I've got a garden. It's my sister's birthday today. I've got some tents in the garden. I've 14-year-olds in the garden. My reality, what I remember, and it's rough now. It's scary.
Do you have a favorite moment for your character on the show? How about that one?
Right now.
Okay.
Anyway, don't know what to do. Any advice?
You look great, just smile.
It's also 3 in the morning, and I just woke up. But I did pull myself up here.
So we did want to talk about the finale a bit. So what happened in your mind with Lee after the camera turned off? You know, his dad flew away, Starbuck disappeared.
Bunch of tents, a bunch of 14-year-olds, and
I think you should write it, Ron.
Here's Cinemax.
Let's see. We want to get to fan audience questions. So I think we have microphones set up at the ends of the aisles, right? No? That's about right. Here we go, yeah. Why don't we go right here?
Well, first of all, I have to start by I was working at Blockbuster in 2000. I was just curious because the show is such an emotional run show. Did any of you, outside of getting emotionally involved in your own characters, were you emotionally involved in any of the other characters' storylines?
The question is, you were involved with your own emotions and your own character. Were you ever involved with any of the other characters around in their emotion? Jamie, can you answer that?
Jamie, you take this one.
Come on, Jamie.
deeply emotionally involved. Yeah, we were all crying, weren't we? I remember Michael Reimer behind the camera. He was crying more than anybody on the screen, and we were crying quite a lot on screen.
Can't understand a damn thing you say.
You know what, honey? Slow down. When you speak, just slow it down. Just think about this. You're speaking to some people who grew up in the days of Blockbuster. So we're trying to hear you.
Oh, I'm crying for Blockbuster. Hey, Eddie, you're right.
I'm here for a reason. I'm trying desperately hard to understand what you're saying. Okay. I think you're speaking French. I'm not sure. Sounds it at least.
Non, je vous assure, je ne parle pas français. Eddie, non, c'est pas ça.
Exactly, that's what I said. Question for you. Can you, do you have headphones? I'm serious. No, do you have headphones? Do you have a set of headphones that you can plug in? You'll have a better microphone than the mic on your set. Doesn't it work that way? I mean, I thought it did. Can you do that or no? Do you have a set? No.
Yeah. I'm being told we are ending this Skype.
We love you, Jim.
But it was great while it lasted.
We'll see you soon.
I love you. I love you.
Yeah, we love you too.
He doesn't have to leave. Just leave the Skype on.
hang up. Hang up.
Technology shit.
Well, there's his phone number. If anyone wants to continue that conversation in the audience.
I'm telling you know, technology.
Makes you long for the days of Blockbuster again.
I'm telling you.
That was complicated.
So where were we?
Yeah, where were we?
I was just saying before Jamie's video came down that I cannot find one particular moment more than any other.
Right.
Because the whole thing is like a stream of incredible moments.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, there are things that were funny, or things that normally that are funny are things that weren't planned.
Mm-hmm.
And things that somebody said, well, yes, to a certain extent. So yeah, there's loads of stories. I can tell one story that was just funny, at least, and that was when I was naked. Can you believe that it didn't make the cut? But basically, it was one particular scene where I was on the Cylon-based Star, and I was being interviewed by Lucy Lawless and Tricia, and they were very empowered in white dresses, and I was naked. Which actually, strange enough, is also quite empowering if you're like the only naked person in a room full of people with clothes on. But the thing that really made me laugh was, and I was standing like this, covering myself. But the thing that really made me laugh was when we started filming the scene, was looking at the boom operator, who basically had blindfolded himself. so he would be traumatized afterwards. And literally, Greg, the boom was standing. So, one of my lasting memories. So, there it is.
Tricia, do you have one?
As James said, we've had this question quite a few times, and so I'll come up with a different answer. Usually, my answer is Gina in Pegasus and being in the cell, because that was like a poignant moment for me in terms of growth as a character and having a different character from number 6, head 6. But one of the ones that also sticks out to me was in the miniseries. We've all kind of said miniseries ones to some extent, was the baby killing, the snapping of the neck. And I remember there was a lot of discussion about it, and the network didn't want it in there, and I remember talking with I liked the fact that it was in there, and Michael Reimer and I talking about, and Ron talking about it being more of a mercy killing. And to me, it was important to have that moment, because you saw, I mean, Capricorn knew that the bombs were about to go off, things were, this baby was going to die shortly, but it was the first time that she had actually held a baby, and so for her to take that moment and kind of be fascinated by the baby and want to pick up the baby and be kind of taken in by its innocence, and then make the choice to end its life quickly and painlessly, as opposed to suffering hours later. And to me, that was a very integral moment of showing that this other side, that you're very quickly going to learn that this other side is, or you have learned at that point, this is the other side, this is the evil side, has some sort of empathy and has something, even if it's not something that you believe in, but can feel. And here's these robots that can have these emotions and feel. And I think that's the first moment that we really sort of saw a glimpse of it in the show, and it was such a hard thing. I mean, obviously, the crack sound. My sister has still never watched the show because of it, because she had just had a baby 2 weeks before, and she was watching the miniseries, and she was breastfeeding, and she watched that, and she has never watched it since. Her husband did, but she didn't. but it was to me, it was just a moment of showing that here's this character that is on the other side, but is deeper and there's more depth to her and to their side than you're sort of like a foreshadowing of that there's a lot more to this the Cylon side than you're expecting in the beginning.
And Grace, what about yourself?
Oh, we're not talking casting stories, just favorite moment, right?
Yeah.
Mine is a little bit on the slightly darker side, so like, wow, that's pretty dark too. Then I'm gonna one-up her and talk about the rape scene. No, I'm not. Actually, it's the scene that, no, I won't talk about that. But it's actually the one with Tom Pennicott where he shoots Athena. And for me, I think it's like we already knew coming in that it was a very heavy scene. So there was kind of a lot of like, we don't even have to really play it out as long as we are there. But I felt like it was like a trust exercise in a way to allow yourself to go there and then fall and then have him, he's gonna catch the rest, whatever it is, like metaphorically, energetically, physically, and then the rest of it is just his. And it's a weird surrender in a way to go through something like that. And because we knew like it's so silly because it's like I'm all nerding out. It's like, oh, because you're supposed to download, and it's like it's so in the story. But at the same time, it's like while we're shooting it like our characters, and you're just hoping. It's like I really hope you come back. And so it is a scene about faith in a way and trust. And it was just beautiful to like even as I'm playing dead, like just to have him carry the rest of the scene and like what that did mean, even though she's a robot or a cyborg, whatever. Yeah, so that was good.
And Michael, what about yourself?
I love this question, and James is right. It's hard to quantify all these scenes and pick one. But I can tell you a moment that I thought was kind of amusing. It's funny. I haven't told the story very often in these forums. It was late in the second season, early in the third season, I don't remember, but Anders is part of this resistance along with the chief, and we're blowing up these Cylon cafes. And I found myself in a parking structure with Grace and Tricia and Lucy Lawless. And I'm trapped in this amazing set where we had these huge concrete pillars and this Citroen. I remember this amazing car, this vehicle, and it was in a parking structure, and the whole thing had collapsed. And now I find myself amongst the Cylons, the people that I'm supposed to be fighting, and we're shooting. It's dark and it's smoky and it's steamy and I'm like, that's Lucy Lawless. Tricia and Grace and me. And then James showed up for a bit, and I was like, James is here. For a while, I was like, just me and the girls, and I'm feeling kind of good. And this is taking a long time, this scene. And they got me splayed out on the floor with my arm pinned under some concrete, my leg under a Citroen, and I got broken, and there's blood and dust, and there's this buzz around the set. Hey, David Icke is coming. David Icke is on set. David Icke. There's always the buzz when one of the bigwigs show up on set. And I was like, oh shit, David Icke. I haven't met him yet, but I've heard about him. It's really cool that he's here. And in walks David Icke to the set, and I'm splayed out on the floor. And he's like, my cast, my babies, how are you? And he walks into the thing like that, and he steps right over. And I remember seeing the shoe, was like, oh, Bruno Mali, OJ wears my shoes. He's like, Lucy, Grace, Tricia, dinner tonight? Not dinner? Oh, James, good, dinner tonight? Dinner with the cast on me. And I was like, and he just walked right over me again, and walked right out of there. I was like, oh. And I was like, nice to meet you. All right, see you later. And that was my first introduction. That being said, one of the sweetest men on the face of this earth. I told that story later. He's like, what the fuck? What? No, I thought that was a dummy on the floor. I didn't know. He is absolutely one of the most beautiful, sweet, kind human beings I've ever met. But that was my very first thought. I was like, Jesus Christ, David, he just walked right over me. So that's a little something story that not a lot of people know, except now you do.
That's also the scene that I separated my rib.
Yes,
I got hurt in that scene.
That's right.
Yeah. Killing.
Way to bring it down, Tricia. Yeah.
So yeah, you go to the emergency room, and Like, what were you doing? Well, I was dying. I was in an underground parking garage, and I was killing somebody because she wanted me to kill myself and download, and I didn't want to. How do you explain that? Like, I fell across and I had a broken leg, and I had to fall across her, and I couldn't step on this leg because it was broken, so I just had to fall, and I fell on a set piece, and yeah.
That just reminds me that I had an accident on set that wasn't great, and I hurt my head, but it wasn't too dreadful. But at the time, I was covered in, blood and stuff, fake blood, ketchup, whatever, and looked like a total mess. But because I'd hurt my head, I had to go to hospital. And they wheeled me in the hospital, and when they saw me in the they were like, "What the fuck has happened to this guy? You dropped a car on him." I mean, like, what have you? I'm like, "Oh no, that's all makeup. It's actually just here. It hurts." They were really freaked out in the hospital. Good makeup, I reckon.
Okay, now we will do fan questions again, and if I don't know if the microphones are there yet. No. Okay. Oh, awesome.
Come here, if you would form a line down this aisle, we'll get to your questions. Form a line, single fall. Am I well going? We'll start at
Thank you for coming. This is great. It's been fun. If this is a question for everyone in the crowd, but if Ron could actually answer last, like the opening voiceover talks about how the Cylons had a plan. What is each person's idea of what the plan that the Cylons had was?
Ron should just start.
And finished.
There is no plan. This was one of the great, David Icke, the lovely man who steps over actors on sets, came up with this when we were designing the main title, and we decided we had to have what we called a pre-cap as opposed to a recap. So we had a pre-cap before the main title that did, the Cylons were created by man, they rebel, blah, blah, blah. And he said, and at the end, you should have a punchy line like, and they have a plan. And I said, well, what the hell does that mean? He said, it doesn't matter, it's gonna be great, the audience is a hook, they'll love it. I'm like, but they don't have a plan, David. And he's like, no, trust me, this is marketing. It doesn't matter, we'll figure it out later, there'll be a plan someday. So for the next 14 years of my life, people have asked me, man, what was the plan? There's no fucking plan.
But we made a movie afterwards called The Plan.
Yeah.
It was like a Seinfeld episode about nothing.
That was what's called an ironic title. It was like, yeah, here's your plan.
Hi, I'm Jeff. I was actually kind of late to the party. Like, I just found out about this through my friend Derek, who's like the biggest BSG fan in the world. He's like, you gotta watch the show, man. I'm like, all right, fine. So, I'm so glad he did, because it was the most amazing show like I've ever seen. And I don't even like sci-fi, so I was like, whoa, dude, this is amazing, But yeah, so like, I watched all y'all before on separate shows, like Burner on Pensacola, Hawaii Five-0, Con Man was when I saw Tricia, and you were hilarious.
What's the question?
Oh, sorry. You have a question? So anyway, yeah, and like just seeing all y'all together was amazing. So my question is who's most like their character on the show, and I guess who is not like their character on the show?
Eddie is the Admiral.
No, who is like? Who is similar?
Eddie is the Admiral, and the Admiral is Eddie.
Eddie's the Admiral.
Eddie's the Admiral.
He signs off as the Admiral.
We can all agree on that.
I think every single one of us was inside of our character, and that we all let it out. But everybody, this woman was amazing. Starbuck, forget it. She was very committed from the very first moment. And then, of course, to say that Mary, my Lord, it had to be Mary. We couldn't have gone any other way. 6 and 8, Boomer and Trish, I gotta tell you, Grayson, both of those women were totally amazing. And you gotta remember, we didn't have the expertise. We had the passion and the commitment from every single person. And like Candace, I don't know if she had ever done anything, Duella, you know, and AJ was acting, but he was acting in theater. And he hadn't really done it too much. And all of us, just everybody owned it. And yeah, okay, I played Adama, but basically, you know, Jamie, Ben, Apollo, are you kidding me? I mean, he was Apollo. I mean, a lot of him came out in that, himself as a person, what he's like. And he was really good, everybody. I don't know where to begin.
And part of that comes too, it's interesting, there's a melding of the writing and the acting, because what happens in an ongoing series, on a good series, the writers start to write towards your cast. You start seeing dailies and you start seeing cuts, and you see how they're playing the role, and you start writing to them. You start writing to what their voices are. So whatever the voices were in the miniseries, I bet if I went back and looked at the miniseries again, I'd be kind of struck by how they don't quite sound like they do today, how they did in the final show. Because as we watched the show, we would watch their performances in the writer's room and we would talk about it. And you would realize, yeah, James is bringing humor to the role of Baltar. Let's give him more funny stuff. That's great. Okay, we're going to redefine the character a little bit because the actor's doing something on stage. You know, Katie likes to shoot guns. Let's give her a gun. She likes the gun stuff. Give her more guns. And you just start playing that. So inevitably, there's this merging of the cast and the character that creates something that wasn't there just on the page.
And I have to say, there was a lot of incredible amount of courage and real security by everybody. The writers, the actors, the directors, everybody had real secure feeling about what we were doing. So much so that you could explore situations that were not even really brought out. And you'd go there and you'd touch it and you'd go, whoa, that's crazy, that's good. And one of the situations was Admiral Adama going and becoming an alcoholic and taking pills and dying and on the ground throwing up, and you know, he just became mush. Here's our hero, and he was, you know, he became nothing. And that wasn't really written. You know, that I took him there and I said, this is going to be the most difficult situation for all of us who love, you know, Adama and all this. It's going to be heartbreaking to see him groveling on the ground, throwing up and the whole thing. And I remembered when I did it, you guys didn't know that I had shot that. And you know, I was in the bathroom painting the thing, and I had learned that, you know, my son had been killed by you, and my best friend was a Cylon, and it was over. I mean, as far as I was concerned, I gave up. And you know, how many times did you ever see Kurt give up? Never, ever. You know, how many times have you ever seen your hero give up? And you guys all felt it, you know, we all did when we saw him. I remember getting phone messages from military leaders who thanked me for bringing about the understanding of how difficult it was and how they could not take it, and they'd never been able to see themselves the way that they really were until they saw themselves in me. And they saw that what I was doing, they had done. They had broke down, but kept it quiet. They didn't let anybody know that they were having a nervous breakdown because they were the heads of the military. So they were really happy about that. But that took courage on behalf of the producers and especially the writing team, because they augmented it. Like they said, whoa, let's really go there. Okay, Ed, all right, let's go there. And so they let me completely destroy Adama. He became, you know, he was worse than Hogan's character, you know, the XO. The XO, when he starts off, I loved the first opening scene of him holding onto the wall as she goes running by, and he's holding on to the thing, holding on to the, it was, I mean, that kid was for the get-go. I mean, you talk about a character. You really, Michael Hogan is brilliant.
You mentioned how 9/11 impacted your will to do the show, and so I was wondering if, within our social and political context in 2017, what would Battlestar Galactica?
We can't hear you.
Sorry.
Could you start over a little louder?
Within our current political and social context, And given the fact that 9/11 kind of influenced your input on the show, what would Battlestar Galactica be like if it was made in 2017?
Well, it's hard to say. You know, we did Battlestar at a very specific moment in time, and there was a synthesis or a marriage of, you know, what was going on in the world and the inherent story of the apocalyptic attack, and it was very resonant because it was a post 9/11 piece. If we were doing it today, it would probably have a lot of those elements to it, but it would look very different. You know, TV's changed since we did it. When we did the show, serialized TV was really unusual, and it was frowned upon. Networks didn't like it. And if you look at the first season carefully, you'll see it was kind of an episodic show. We were trying to do one-off episodes because network was terrified that people would watch them out of order and they'd be lost. Because in those days, there was no way to catch up on the show, really. You know, there was no streaming and downloads and any of that, and DVR penetration was very low. So they wanted each episode to be standalone. Today, if we did it, we would just write it as a flat-out serial, and we wouldn't bother with that structure at all. And yes, we would take advantage of the current political situation and talk about the world and how it's changed and all that. I don't know, you know, it's hard to imagine doing it today if it was just from zero, because you would have to start with a blank page again and decide what of the original story is still relevant now, and what would we have to say if we were going to do it all over again.
She took my question. But this show, I always pass it on to someone with a cautionary tale, and I show them the Portlandia skit. Like, this is going to be your reality. Like, I have it tattooed on my body. Like, you're gonna get stuck. Is there, like, any time where you've shown it to someone and said, like, be ready to be involved, or I'll answer whatever questions, or no one will answer any questions. So what's your craziest story of passing it along?
You know, so we often get questions like this, and they're perfectly legitimate, but I think what happens quite often when you're in something is that you're more vulnerable than the viewer. And so you do ask people to watch, but probably not as much as you all do. Would you guys agree? It's sort of, we're so vulnerable. When this thing started to air, the vulnerability of not knowing exactly how it would land in the minds and hearts of people, and then the absolute thrill and joy when it landed so beautifully, but it sort of, it creates a little bit of a shyness, except in Eddie, who is showing it to everyone. But it's a great question.
Kind of similar to what James was saying, bringing the humor to Gaius. Was there any moment in particular for any of y'all where you brought something, a character trait or a character choice that kind of stood out that you were proud of, that was kind of your own bringing to the table?
I was a really good pyramid player prior to being on the show. Coincidentally, which is amazing, it's a little hobby of mine, pyramid. Worked into the show, they're like, that guy can play pyramid. That's right, there was no such thing as pyramid. That's my favorite. Our first, remember when we were there, like, so just, you guys just shoot around. We're like, shoot around what? This game doesn't exist.
We created the game, like in an hour. You and I, literally, with the stunt coordinator, they were like, I was like, yeah, it looked really cool if I like dove. And they're like, yeah, you didn't dive. Why would you dive? I don't know, because maybe I need to get the ball over there.
Yeah, throw a miniature volleyball into a basket made out of, like, rusty iron that was on a wall, and it just didn't go ahead, shoot around, and we'll just
But
shoot.
make it semi-sexual. So you have to touch. Right? Like, there has to be touching.
Every hip check will create an erection. They're like, okay. That's part of the game.
You're falling in love. Go.
Speaking of that, Katee, who is Starbucks' true love? Zach, Lee, or Anders?
Careful.
Gaius. I'm just kidding. I don't know, you know, I tend to think that, you know, coming at it from like a more adult point of view at this point in my life, that my answer would have been completely different at 24 had you asked me like in the middle. I believe in multiple loves of your life. I think that there is a person for who you are at this moment, and they make you grow, and you get what you can, and if you don't grow together, you move on and find someone else. And that's sort of what love is allowing someone to grow and leave you. So I don't know. There's one really funny scene that I'll tell you really quick about, the James and Jamie scene, where she's having sex with Gaius but imagining Apollo. So we're doing this scene, and Tricia's in this scene, obviously, because she's watching it, as she would. And so I'm laying on my back, and I do the scene with Gaius, because he's the real one. Tricia's watching the entire thing in the scene. And then the AD goes, "Okay, James, we're done. Jamie, climb on." Did you watch what he did? Because just do the same thing. Everyone ready? Okay, go. Awesome. And I believe, no, the first sex scene I ever had on set was with Zach in my entire career, and I also won $5 Friday that day. And for some reason, everyone paid in ones and quarters that day, so in my robe went like $300 of ones and quarters and fives right after my first sex scene ever. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, my parents would be so proud. I'm a hooker.
Okay, so first I just wanted to show my super cool Battlestar tattoo it says "Nothing but the rain" with the arrow of Apollo. And so I'm really glad that no one stole this question, but I really need to learn the workout plan of Fat Apollo. How did that happen so well?
The workout plan of Fat Apollo.
Oh. Is that what you said? Yeah.
The workout plan
for
for
like
Fat
5
Apollo?
seconds, just 2 pumps, and he was good.
Yeah, that's the miracle of editing right there.
He can't answer that question.
Really a question. I just want to say that my favorite character of all time ever is Starbuck, clearly. I made you one.
Oh.
So I can bring that to her. Also, does anybody else feel like Fat Apollo was short-lived? Because I do. I want to see him fat for a whole season.
I would have been happy to keep him as Fat Apollo. I think Jamie felt otherwise.
That was the first time I ever saw Jamie eat carbs. Ever.
Thank you for the shirt. I love you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for doing this. A lot of really great questions have been asked tonight. And I have a very simple one for Katee. Actually, it's for Starbuck, and it is, what do you hear, Starbuck?
Oh my gosh, people do this all the time. And I never answer. But nothing but the rain.
Hi guys, so when you work on a show like this that has such wonderful writing and such a great ensemble cast, how does it shape the roles when you're looking at future scripts and, after the fact of having such a, striking show like this?
It's a hard one. In reality, I gotta tell you, while we were doing it, Mary, myself, and Michael Hogan would sit around and would say, boy, we're really lucky that we were into this at the age when we hit it. And we were doing it, I was in my 50s, and she was in her 30s.
I was at
34. I was 53 when I started. And Hogan and I think I'm about 3 years older than Hogan. So we were talking about this. But to be 23, to be like he was 30, you were 29 or 30, James? 30, I think. 30? Jamie, I think, was the same age. And how old were you then? 29? 30. Grace, how old were you? 29. And Mike? 5 or 6. What I'm saying is that if I did it, and believe me, I this is the best usage of television I've ever been a part of in my life. And I've done some good shows in my life, really good ones. You know, Miami Vice was really a good show. So was, you know, West Wing. And so was Whiskey Blues and NYPD Blue and all of these shows that I've done in my life, but nothing got close to this. And we talked about it. We said, well, we're lucky because, you know, we don't have as long to go with our workload, but they have to live this through. And the question is very poignant because I don't think I'll ever do another show like this again in my lifetime. I was lucky that we got one, ever.
We maybe only have time for like one more question, I'm sorry.
All right, so first off, BSG is my favorite sci-fi show of all time. However, I'm a huge Trek fan. This question's for Ron. DS9 is my favorite Trek series, and rewatching both DS9 and Battlestar, I noticed a lot of similarities in theme. And I know that just from reading a lot about it, with DS9 and Trek, you were a little bit constrained by, you know, the Trek IP, right? So what, if there's a thing that you wanted to explore in DS9, but you weren't able to, but you were able to with Battlestar Galactica, what was that?
Well, I mean, I probably in the last couple years of Deep Space Nine, we had an arc that was called the, God, it wasn't the Foundation, I'm blanking on, the Founders. The Dominion War arc at the end of Deep Space Nine. So the Federation was plunged into war. So the characters were, you know, on the front lines of a war. And as we played those stories out, even though the stories were interesting and good, I kept feeling constrained that we couldn't really get under their skin and we couldn't really push the envelope of what it meant to be in war, what it would do to people, how people would act, the sacrifices you would make, the bad choices that you would have, and the bitterness and the horror of it all. And Trek just wasn't comfortable going really into that territory. So there were a lot of things about that I thought someday I'd do a science fiction piece that was set in a war situation, and I would really try to do it right and really try to dig in deeper into it. And then, you know, it was a lot of other things. There was like camera work and sound and music and set design and stuff that I just finally, you know, had enough of by the end of my Trek run, which was very special to me, but there was a constraint to how far you could go. So a lot of thinking for Battlestar began in those years at Deep Space, yeah.
And we're actually now like over, two. Okay.
The music in the show is really great and plays such an important role. I'm wondering, maybe can you speak to the relationship with or how you worked with Bear McCreary and what that was like, and kind of just anything about the music and the role play?
Well, the template for the music was set in the miniseries. Michael Reimer was very instrumental in that, so was David Icke, and then Stuart Gibbs, who did the soundtrack for the miniseries originally, and then Bear was his assistant. And then he didn't do the series as it went forward, but suggested Bear become the composer. And we went, great, you know, we like Bear, let's do it. And I would say through the first season, we had conversations one-on-one with Bear. He'd come in and we'd do what's called a music spotting session where you're watching the episode in the editing bay, and we're talking. There's always a temp track that the editor puts into the show that has temporary music drawn from various sources, other movies, TV shows, classical pieces. And we just had conversations with Bear about what it would be. But after a few episodes, it's like he gets it, and we just went, okay, we don't have to talk to Bear anymore, he's just gonna go do it. And we literally didn't talk to him a lot. You know, there would be various specific episodes might come up where a specific theme would be involved, or like, you know, the Pegasus comes into the show, and oh, it should have a different music here, and so we had to have a conversation with Bear about that. Oh, I have this crazy idea about All Along the Watchtower. It was a very long conversation. He was an amazing artist, and we just let him go. And it was like, just deliver a great score, and that's really all we asked of him.
So the theme of what has happened before will happen again. It was followed by a great quote that said, but it doesn't have to. So in this day and age, what are some themes, mistakes, lessons, or ways of being that were portrayed in the show that we need to be mindful of in this day and age, the political climate, the cultural climate? What do you see as personally relevant that was there in the show that we really can bring forward in this day and age?
I think that the idea that humanity could be reduced to 55,000 people all of a sudden and force a collective group of people to have to see each other as one, it is, to me, is the thing that continually resonates for me about this show, because we are living in a time where the powers that be are trying to create as much difference between us as their pocketbooks will allow. And so with Battlestar, we have a reminder that it could go away like that. And I think we're unfortunately living on the edge at the moment on the planet. So perhaps we can stop dividing each other and seeing each other as the other, because there's no difference. And that's one of the things I love the most about what Ron did, that I think that's kind of what you mean, right?
And Angela Weekly for hosting, and thank our panelists, and thank you all for coming. And I think it's only appropriate that we go out on a certain phrase.
We want to thank, on behalf of our crew here, especially, everyone that made this possible and that continues to make this possible. This, I guess, is the 6th year, right? And so we would like to just make sure that you know that we love you guys for coming here and supporting this. So say we all. So say we all. So say we all. So say